The rain was falling in sheets over the city of Chicago, a relentless downpour that seemed to wash away the last traces of summer and replace them with the cold, unforgiving chill of autumn. I was standing at the bus stop, my daughter Sophie clutched to my chest, trying to shield her from the worst of the weather with my threadbare jacket. She was 6 years old, with her mother's eyes, big and brown and full of wonder, and a smile that could break your heart. Her mother, my wife Alina, had died 2 years ago, a sudden, cruel illness that had stolen her from us in the middle of the night. I had been a construction worker then, a man with calloused hands and a steady income. But grief had unraveled me. I had lost my job, lost my savings, lost my way. Now I was a single father, working 2 jobs to make ends meet, scraping together enough money to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. I was a janitor at a downtown office building during the week, and on weekends, I worked as a delivery driver, hauling packages across the city in a beat-up van that had seen better days. It was a hard life, but it was my life, and I was determined to make it work for Sophie. The bus finally arrived, a gleaming silver behemoth that seemed to mock my poverty. I climbed aboard, Sophie still in my arms, and found a seat near the back. She was shivering, her small body trembling against mine. I wrapped my arms around her, trying to share what little warmth I had. "Daddy, I'm cold," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the engine. "I know, baby," I said, my voice thick with guilt. "I know, we'll be home soon, I promise." I looked out the window at the rain-soaked streets, my mind drifting to the past. I thought about Alina, about the life we had planned together, the future that had been stolen from us. I thought about the necklace I always wore, a simple silver chain with a small pendant, a delicate heart with a tiny diamond in the center. It had been Alina's, a gift from her grandmother, and she had worn it every day of our marriage. When she died, I had taken it, a small piece of her to carry with me always. It was the only thing of value I owned, the only reminder of the love we had shared. The bus pulled up to my stop, and I gathered Sophie in my arms, stepping out into the cold, wet night. I lived in a small apartment in a rundown part of the city, a place that was barely more than a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. It was cramped and dingy, but it was ours. I had tried my best to make it a home for Sophie, filling it with her toys and her drawings, trying to create a sense of normalcy in a world that had been turned upside down. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, setting Sophie down on the threadbare couch. She was still shivering, her lips tinged with blue. I ran to the bathroom, turning on the hot water, and drew her a bath. I helped her undress, my hands gentle, and lowered her into the warm water. She sighed, a soft, contented sound, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "I'm going to make you some hot chocolate," I said, my voice soft. "You stay here and warm up, okay?" She nodded, her eyes already drooping with exhaustion. I walked into the kitchenette, my mind still churning with worry. I needed to find a better job, something that would pay more, something that would give Sophie the life she deserved. But the opportunities were scarce, and my options were limited. I was trapped, a prisoner of circumstance, trying to claw my way out of a hole that seemed to be getting deeper every day. The next morning, I woke up before dawn, my body aching with exhaustion. I had a double shift at the office building, and I needed to get Sophie to her after-school program before I started. I made her breakfast, a bowl of oatmeal with a drizzle of honey, and packed her lunch, a simple sandwich and an apple. She ate quietly, her eyes still heavy with sleep, and I felt a pang of guilt for dragging her out of bed so early. "Come on, baby," I said, my voice gentle. "We need to go." The office building was a towering monolith of glass and steel, a monument to the wealth and power that I could only dream of. I worked the day shift now, a promotion of sorts, though it still paid barely enough to keep us afloat. I pushed my cart through the hallways, emptying trash cans and scrubbing floors, my mind drifting to Alina and the life we had once shared. The executive floor was the most exclusive part of the building, the domain of the company's CEO, Victoria Ashford. She was a legend in the business world, a woman who had built an empire from nothing, a billionaire who had clawed her way to the top through sheer determination and willpower. I had never seen her, not really. I caught glimpses of her through the glass walls of her office, a tall figure in an expensive suit, always in motion, always in control. She was a force of nature, something to be admired and feared in equal measure. But today, the executive floor was different. The usual hustle and bustle was absent, the secretaries and assistants nowhere to be seen. I was alone, pushing my cart down the carpeted hallway, the only sound the squeak of my wheels and the hum of the air conditioning. I stopped outside Victoria Ashford's office. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out into the darkened hallway. I was about to move on to come back later when I heard a sound, a soft, muffled cry, a sound of pain. My heart started pounding. I pushed the door open a few inches, peering inside. The office was vast, a cathedral of power and wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city skyline. A massive mahogany desk dominated the center of the room, and there in the corner was Victoria Ashford. She was sitting on a small couch, her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. She was a beautiful woman, I realized, with sharp cheekbones and dark, penetrating eyes. But there was a vulnerability there now, a raw, naked pain that I had never seen in her before. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. I was just a janitor. It wasn't my place to intrude on her private moment. But something inside me, something I couldn't explain, made me step forward. "Mrs. Ashford," I said, my voice soft, "are you okay?" She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What are you doing here?" I'm the janitor," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just cleaning." She wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. "It's fine," she said, her voice still shaky. "I'm fine, you can go." I nodded, turning to leave. But then something caught her eye. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Wait," she said, her voice sharp. "Stop, don't move." I froze, my heart pounding. She stood up, walking toward me, her eyes fixed on my chest. I looked down, confused, and saw that my shirt had come unbuttoned, revealing the necklace Alina had given me. "Where did you get that?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "Where did you get that necklace?" I stared at her, my mind reeling. "It was my wife's," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She died 2 years ago. It was a gift from her grandmother." Victoria's face went pale. "That's not possible," she said, her voice shaking. "That necklace, it was my husband's. He gave it to me on our wedding day. He died 5 years ago." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I don't understand," I said. "How could it be your husband's? It was Alina's. She wore it every day." Victoria stared at me, her eyes searching mine. "Alina," she repeated, the name sounding strange on her lips. "Alina who?" "Alina Rodriguez," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She was my wife. She died of cancer." Victoria's face went even paler, if that was possible. "Rodriguez," she said, her voice hollow. "Alina Rodriguez. She was my husband's sister. She was my sister-in-law." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "What?" I said, my voice shaking. "That's impossible. Alina never mentioned having a brother. She never mentioned having any family at all." "She didn't talk about her family," Victoria said, her voice barely a whisper. "She cut them off years ago. She had a falling out with her parents, with my husband. She disappeared and we never heard from her again. We thought she was dead." I felt the world tilt around me. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, that can't be right. Alina was an orphan. She told me she had no family. She told me she was alone." "She lied to you," Victoria said, her voice soft. "She lied to all of us." I sank onto the couch, my legs giving out beneath me. I felt like I was drowning, like the world I had known had been ripped away and replaced with something unfamiliar and terrifying. Alina had lied to me. She had hidden her past, her family, everything. Why? Why would she do that? Tell me about her, Victoria said, her voice gentle. Tell me about Alina, please. And so I did. I told her about the woman I had loved, the woman who had been my everything. I told her about our marriage, our daughter, our life together. I told her about the good times and the bad, the laughter and the tears. I told her about the cancer, the slow, agonizing decline, the final, heartbreaking goodbye. Victoria listened, her eyes filled with tears. When I was done, she reached out and took my hand, her grip warm and steady. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm so sorry for the secrets she kept, but I need to know why. Why did she cut us off? Why did she pretend we didn't exist?" "I don't know," I said, my voice hollow. "I don't know anything anymore." Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft and hesitant. "I think I know," she said. "I think I know why she left." I looked at her, my heart pounding. "Why?" I asked. "Why did she do it?" "Because of me," Victoria said, her voice barely a whisper. "Because of what I did." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "What did you do?" Victoria took a deep breath, her eyes filled with shame. "I was in love with her," she said, her voice breaking. "I was in love with my husband's sister, and when she found out, she was disgusted. She couldn't handle it. She left and she never looked back." I felt the world tilt around me again. "You were in love with Alina," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "But you're a woman. Alina was a woman." "I know," Victoria said, her voice cracking. "I know it's wrong, I know it's impossible, but I couldn't help it. I loved her. And when she rejected me, I was devastated. I pushed her away. I made her feel like she was nothing, and she left. She left, and I never got the chance to apologize." I sat there, staring at her, my mind racing. Alina had been running from her past, running from the shame and the pain. She had built a new life, a new identity, and she had never looked back. She had never told me the truth because she was too afraid of what I might think, too afraid of losing me. "I don't know what to say," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to process this." "You don't have to say anything," Victoria said, her voice soft. "I just wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to know why she left. And I wanted to apologize for everything, for the pain I caused her, for the pain I caused you." I looked at her, this powerful woman who had been brought to her knees by the weight of her past, and I felt a strange sense of kinship. We were both broken, both struggling to make sense of a world that had been turned upside down. We were both searching for answers, for closure, for a way to move forward. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank you for telling me the truth." The next few weeks were strange. Victoria and I, two strangers bound by a shared past, began to talk, to share our stories, to find comfort in each other's presence. She told me about her husband, about the love they had shared, about the pain of losing him. She told me about her guilt, her shame, her desperate need to make things right. And I listened. I listened to her story, her pain, her regret, and I started to see her differently. She was not the cold, ruthless CEO I had always believed her to be. She was a woman who had been hurt, who had made mistakes, who was trying to find her way back to the light. One evening, she invited me to her penthouse, a sprawling apartment that overlooked the city. I was hesitant, unsure of what to expect. But when I arrived, I found her in the kitchen, cooking dinner, her sleeves rolled up, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She looked nothing like the powerful CEO I had seen in the office. She looked like a normal person, a woman who was trying to make a connection. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft. "I know this is strange. I know this is complicated, but I wanted to get to know you. I wanted to know more about Alina, about the life she built after she left." I sat down at the table, my heart pounding. "I don't know what to say," I said. "I don't know how to do this." "You don't have to do anything," she said, her voice gentle. "Just be here, just be yourself." And so I was. We talked for hours, sharing stories, laughing, crying. I told her about Sophie, about my daughter, about the joy she brought to my life. She told me about her own struggles, her loneliness, her desperate need to connect with someone, anyone. As the night wore on, I felt a connection forming, a bond that I hadn't expected. Victoria Ashford was not the monster I had imagined. She was a woman who had been broken by life, just like me. And in that moment, I realized that we were not so different after all. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Victoria and I grew closer, our friendship deepening into something more. She became a fixture in my life, a constant presence that I had never expected. She was there for the school plays and the doctor's appointments. She was there for the birthdays and the holidays. She was there for everything. And Sophie adored her. She called her Aunt Victoria, her small arms wrapped around her neck, her laughter filling the room. Victoria was like a mother to her, a role model, a friend. But there was something else, something I hadn't expected. The more time I spent with Victoria, the more I realized that I was falling in love with her. It was terrifying. I was a single father, a former construction worker, a man who had nothing to offer. She was a billionaire, a CEO, a woman who could have anyone she wanted. Why would she ever want me? But she did. She told me one night, her voice soft and hesitant. "I know this is crazy," she said. "I know this is impossible, but I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop feeling this. It's like you've opened a door in my heart that I thought was sealed forever." I looked at her, this beautiful, broken woman, and I felt my own walls crumbling. "I feel it too," I said. "I've felt it for a long time. I was just too afraid to say anything." "I was too afraid too," she said. "I was afraid of being hurt again. I was afraid of being rejected. But with you, I feel safe. I feel like I can be myself." We kissed, a soft, tentative kiss that turned into something more, a promise, a beginning. The years that followed were the happiest of my life. Victoria and I built a life together, a beautiful, chaotic life filled with love and laughter. Sophie grew up, a happy, healthy teenager who adored both of her mothers. Victoria and I got married, a small, intimate ceremony on a private beach, surrounded by our closest friends. I looked back at the journey that had brought us here, the janitor who had seen the necklace, the CEO who had recognized it, the truth that had shocked us both, the love that had healed us. It had all started with a simple piece of jewelry, a necklace that had connected two broken souls, two people who had been brought together by fate and circumstance, a necklace that had led us to each other. And now I was ready to share our story with the world, a story of love, of healing, of second chances, a story that proved that even the most broken people can find happiness. I smiled, my heart full. I had found my forever, and I was never going to let it go. But life, as I had learned, was never that simple. Just when I thought we had found our happily ever after, the universe threw us another curveball. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 5 years into our marriage. I was in Victoria's office going over some files when my phone rang. It was Sophie's school. My heart seized in my chest. "Mr. Miller," the principal said, her voice strained. "There's been an accident. Sophie fell during recess. She's been taken to the hospital." I dropped the phone, my legs giving out beneath me. Victoria caught me, her arms strong and steady. "What happened?" she asked, her voice urgent. "It's Sophie," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She's in the hospital." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Victoria drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, her jaw clenched. I sat in the passenger seat, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Sophie was my entire world. The thought of losing her, of losing another person I loved, was unbearable. We arrived at the emergency room to find Sophie conscious but pale, her arm in a sling, a gash on her forehead. The doctors said she had fallen from the monkey bars, breaking her arm and suffering a mild concussion. She would be fine, they assured us. She would make a full recovery. But as I looked at my daughter, her eyes filled with tears, I realized how fragile life was, how quickly everything could change. And I realized that I couldn't take anything for granted, not my happiness, not my love, not my family. That night after Sophie had fallen asleep, Victoria and I sat in the hospital room holding hands. I was so scared, I said, my voice shaking. I thought I was going to lose her. Me too, Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. But she's okay. She's going to be okay. I looked at her, this woman who had become my everything. I love you, I said. I love you so much. I love you too, she said, squeezing my hand. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you and Sophie are safe and happy. I promise. But promises, even the ones made with the best intentions, can be broken. A few months later, Victoria's past came back to haunt us. Her husband's family, the Ashfords, had been trying to destroy her for years, blaming her for his death, for the secrets she had kept, for the love she had hidden. They had been spreading rumors, planting evidence, building a case against her. They were determined to ruin her, to take everything she had built. I knew I had to do something. I had to help her. But I was just a janitor, a former construction worker. What could I do? And then an idea came to me. I had been investigating the Ashfords for months, using my downtime, my nights, to dig into their past. I talked to people, pieced together clues, followed the money. And I found it. I found the evidence they were trying to hide, the documents they had forged, the trail of lies they had left behind. I brought it all to Victoria, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. I found it, I said. I found proof of their scheme. You can use this to stop them. She stared at the documents, her eyes wide with shock. How did you do this? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. How did you find all of this? I was a construction foreman, I said. I know how to find things that are hidden. I know how to follow the trail. She looked at me, her eyes filled with something I had never seen in them before. Gratitude. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you. The battle was vicious. Victoria took the evidence to the authorities and the Ashfords were arrested, their scheme exposed. It made the news, a scandal that rocked the business world. Victoria was hailed as a hero, a woman who had fought back against corruption and won. But she didn't take the credit. She gave it to me. She told the press that she had been saved by a janitor, a man who had risked everything to help her. Suddenly, I was famous. My picture was in the newspapers. My name was on everyone's lips. I was no longer invisible. And then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, years later, I found myself in the garden, watching Sophie play with her children, Victoria by my side. I looked at my family, my beautiful, chaotic, imperfect family, and I felt a love so profound, so all-consuming that it almost hurt. I love you, I said, my voice soft. I love you too, Victoria said, her voice gentle, forever and always. I smiled, my heart full. I had found my happy ending, and I was never going to let it go. Because I had learned in the end that love is the only thing that matters. Love is the only thing that lasts. Love is the only thing that can heal the deepest wounds, bridge the widest divides, and light the darkest corners of the human soul. I loved Victoria Ashford, and she loved me. And that love, that beautiful, imperfect, messy love, changed everything. It changed our lives. It changed our family. It changed the world. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. The gift of love, the gift of hope, the gift of a second chance.